If you look at the Nationals starting rotation right now, they've got 6 guys that they will likely use, but will all 6 guys make the starting rotation? Therefore, the Nationals, they might be having a 6-man starting rotation. I think it's a good idea.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Make sure to check us out over on Twitter and search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course over on YouTube, and hit that subscriber button, please. Later on in today's show, we'll be discussing Nathaniel Lowe and the Nationals heading to arbitration before he has taken step into Washington, D.C. And is this a bad look for the team, or is it a bad look for Nathaniel Lowe? We'll kind of get into that a little bit later on, as the Nationals are separated by just about $800,000. And if you don't know what arbitration is, we'll get into that in the third segment as well. In the second segment, the Nationals bullpen and how they are constructed currently, because they did just sign Jorge Lopez to a 1-year, $2 million deal that I believe has incentives that could get him a few more bucks here and there. We'll have that discussion for you a little bit later on. And who will be your Nationals closer? I think Jorge Lopez enters the equation. And will he be the closer on opening day? We'll have that discussion for you in the second segment. But we sit here today with the Nationals 6-man rotation, ? And what will they do with that? Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we get started discussing the Nationals 6-man rotation. And is the question for this, is this the smart thing to do? Should the Nationals go into this season having a 6-man starting rotation? I answer that with a yes. I think it's actually really smart what the Nationals are doing, having a 6-man rotation. Now, is this something if you kind of look at this 6-man rotation, quote unquote, is this a good one? Maybe not the best. It's not, but it's pretty solid. And I'm not going to sit here and complain about everything from this offseason. We all know I thought we should have gone out there and gotten a legit starting pitcher. The Nationals chose not to do that. So here we are. You've got 6 guys now. And I think the Nationals, by the way, they absolutely should go with a 6-man rotation. There's a couple different reasons as to why. I read this piece the other day on teams kind of generating a 6-man rotation way early on. And we've always discussed how guys space out their innings and space out the starts later on in the season, like you see it in August, all the way through September. And in October, it's a free-for-all. You never really have a set 5-man rotation. You all understand that at this point. But with the way that the Nationals have at this point, this is a smart decision if they do decide to go this route. And I feel like they will. If you look at the top, you've got Mackenzie Gore, Jake Irvin, DJ Hers, Mitchell Parker, Trevor Williams, and Michael Soroka. I think all 6 of those guys have potential to be pretty good, pretty solid, just as the top of their ceiling there. Mackenzie Gore has ace kind of stuff. I think Jake Irvin and DJ Hers also has that potential, but they've got to have it all click. But even kind of getting in deeper with this, the Nationals should roll with a 6-man rotation. Number one, because it's not going to be a 6-man rotation all season long. One of these guys will get hurt. It's just inevitable. It's not me predicting the future. It's just what baseball is. And the reason why I predict one of these guys to get hurt was because, number one, it's just going to happen. One of your starters will get hurt. It's a 162-game marathon. We all understand that. But each and every one of these guys, they do have some injury history with them. Mackenzie Gore with his shoulder back in 2022 when the Nationals first traded for him. He was put on the shelf, did not make a start in that 2022 season. Jake Irvin has had Tommy John surgery. DJ Hers, I haven't really heard too much about his injury past, but he's still a young arm who hasn't really pitched that many innings in his career. Then you get to Mitchell Parker. Again, similar note as to DJ Hers. You don't really hear too much about his injury history, but getting into his second major league season, you expect him to pitch a little bit more innings, have a little bit more starts, and therefore it's going to lag on for him just a little bit. Trevor Williams, again, the elbow injury from this last year, shut him down for a few months, the middle of the season, have him spaced out. I think that would be smart. Then Michael Soroka, he's had arm injuries down in the minors, and he's also had Achilles problems up in the bigs. I believe he tore that Achilles not once, but twice in back-to-back years. This would be a smart plan of action for the Nationals to go with a six-man rotation. And it's really as simple as this. Stretch out your arms. And you may have to have one less bullpen guy in order to have this six-man rotation. And is that feasible for a team that doesn't really have the best starting pitching staff that you know you'll get 5+ innings each and every single night? And that may kind of hinder your bullpen and what you can do in those situations? Probably. But I think this is the absolute correct decision. You've got a lot of young guys right now. Again, your top 4 guys right now are all relatively very young. Gore, Irvin, Hers, and Parker. All guys that have had some sort of injuries or they're young and still trying to build up their arm for a full 162-game slate up in the bigs. If I'm Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo in the meeting rooms, having a six-man rotation, I believe, is the future of this game. I think that this is going to be the new norm. And will it kind of curve in a way that you would think there would be another roster spot added in the next CBA? Maybe. But with all the arm injuries now, what would be worse? To have Mackenzie Gore get hurt because maybe he needs an extra day to be stretched out? I think at this point, the Nationals attacking this rotation with 6 guys, it makes all the sense in the world for them. And I don't think that's the case for every single team. Let's say you sign Corbin Burnes, top pitching free agent this offseason. Let's say you went and got him. I would rather see a 5-man rotation to maximize the starts for Corbin Burnes. But now you've got 6 guys. And Mackenzie Gore, he's kind of the one guy who I'd want to see every 5 days because I think he can, just be the best pitcher on this roster and be an ace kind of guy moving forward. But other than that, I think it is very important to just space out your guys and choose the innings that, maybe they don't maximize every single year going forward. Because they could stay healthy for a full 162-game slate. You've seen it with Mackenzie Gore and Jake Irvin. But also these 2 guys, they've got the injury history. Do you really want to relive that? Is that something that is important for this team? These 2 guys are very important. I can just tell you that right then and there. If you want to succeed in 2025, Mackenzie Gore and Jake Irvin, they're going to have to be at the top of their game. And also Trevor Williams coming back. You're going to want to see what he did this last year, and hopefully he replicates that moving forward. But if I'm the Nationals, again, this is the absolute correct decision. And no decision has been made, but if I were in on those meetings, I would pour for this because this is what you have to do in today's game. And in my opinion, I think with the Nationals and where they are right now, I'm not sure if they're ready to compete. I can't go into 2025 saying that they've got some amazing chance at making the wild card. I think they've got a chance, but I don't think they are a team that is on the National League radar as far as making that next step. You've got young pieces that are unproven, young pieces that really just need innings out there. And I think if you utilize a 6-man rotation, which eventually will also have Cade Cavalli at some point this season, then maybe, just maybe, you've got a pretty good starting rotation with 6 guys. And if that doesn't work out, you drop one of those guys, put them in the bullpen, send them down to AAA, whatever you have to do in order to make these guys the best version of themselves. I think getting a 6-man rotation on opening day would be. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment in the YouTube section or tweet at me at Ryan Clary 11. But now let's talk about the bullpen. This is going to be a pitching show. And the bullpen construction right now as we speak, it's a little bit messy. But which guy will fit in which slot? Who will be in the 7th inning? Who will be in the 8th inning? And who will be in the 9th? After you just signed Jorge Lopez, who has had some 2 to 3 good seasons out of the bullpen. We'll discuss that and the signing of what Jorge Lopez means to this organization after we tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, I have told you guys all about FanDuel, and from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed, that's $200 in bonus bets. Win or lose, FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website and share betting lines around your team or league. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. And maybe you want to bet on the Commanders and the Lions this Saturday night as you have got Jaden Daniels, anytime touchdown scorer, of course, in your bet. And also got an Austin Eckler anytime touchdown prop as well. So make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's get into the Nationals' construction of their bullpen. I mean, this is kind of like one of those weird things where it's January 14th. You got to talk about something. The Nationals aren't really making too many of sexy moves, but they did make a move. The Nationals signed Jorge Lopez. And you're probably familiar with this name because he was with the New York Mets last year, and he was the guy who threw his glove over the netting after having a really bad performance against, I forgot what team, but yes, he was traded from the Cubs to the Mets, and it was one of those weird situations where it got dicey real quick. Dare I say it was a little bit like Jonathan Papelbon with the Nats in 2015, where Papelbon just exploded on the Nats and choked Bryce Harper. I won't say choked, but he did some unforgivable things to Bryce in the locker, or really not even in the locker room, in the dugout. And you all saw it. We all saw it. It's not that bad. I won't even get there. But this signing overall, I actually like it. Like, this is one of those things where you got to take chances. And I was looking at the Nationals payroll, and we are still down $24 million from what we were last year, I believe. And that figure may just be a tad off, but we're right around that ballpark at this point. A 1-year, $2 million deal, fine, go for it. You move on from Yohan Adon, which is the obvious decision for moving on from anyone in the 40-man roster. And I think signing Jorge Lopez is a solid kind of signing for this team. He is not someone who's going to come in and completely blow your doors off and be a closer. I think where Jorge Lopez signs up and really just kind of does well at this point is in that 8th inning slot, being that Hunter Harvey. Now, I'm not 100% sold on him being the Hunter Harvey from what we saw this last year. But I will say this. If you kind of just look at the numbers overall, he was an all-star with the Orioles back in 2022. And then in 2023, completely blew up, had a negative 0.7 B WAR on the season, and was just flat out bad. And he signed with the Cubs, had a very good season with them, was traded to the Mets, and then he eventually got cut. Even though he wasn't that great with him, he had some solid appearances. But where Jorge Lopez did the best work was coming in that 7th, 8th inning slot. So we get into it now with the Nationals bullpen construction, where some of these guys fit. Right now, with where the bullpen stands, just some names that we're going to throw out there: Derek Law, Jorge Lopez, Jose Frere, Zach Brixey, Evan Reifert, which is a Rule 5 draft guy from the Tampa Bay Rays that will be on the Nationals opening day roster. By the way, I think Evan Reifert's a lot better than Thaddeus Ward, what we got just 2 years ago. You saw he didn't really have that much production for this team, but I think Reifert is one of those guys who could come into play and could be pretty solid for this team. But let's get into it with this. Let's say the Nationals get 6 innings from a strong start from Mackenzie Gore or Jake Irvin or Mitchell, whoever it is. Doesn't matter at this point. Who finishes the final 3 innings? How does the 7th and how does the 8th and how does the 9th close up for the Nationals? Right now, my 7th inning guy is Derek Law. Derek Law is actually coming off a sneaky, really good season for the Nationals. Now, a lot of the metrics indicate that he did get lucky, which I think is probably pretty fair to say. But I think going into this season with Derek Law as your 7th inning guy is not all terrible. This is someone who has proven to be a solid bullpen contributor over the last few seasons, coming from the Reds and then last year with the Nationals. If you look at it, in the second half of the season, Derek Law was probably your best overall pitcher outside of DJ Hurst. Derek Law was certainly your top bullpen guy, even over a Kyle Finnegan, in my opinion, through the month of September. Derek Law is not someone that I'm going to be screaming for and buying his jersey for. I don't think you should buy Derek Law's jersey. I'll just tell you that right now. But I also think this guy will be a solid contributor for this team. I think that this is someone who fits in that 7th inning role and might do it pretty damn well, by the way. But also, you've got more. In the Nationals, they probably should add more if you're looking at this bullpen, because this is where it gets a little bit dicey, in my opinion. The 8th inning, right now, for where it sets up, it's Jorge Lopez. And I don't know how I feel about Jorge Lopez going in as your setup guy for the foreseeable future, but I can tell you this. If you get the better version of Jorge Lopez, this is someone who has proven to be an all-star over the last 2 seasons. He was an all-star in 2022. 2023 completely fell off. And then, of course, last year he picked it right back up. Probably should have been an all-star if you look at his first half metrics, but did not get selected to do so. I think this is a solid beginning for a bullpen that is very young. And number 2, it's just overall very raw. But Jorge Lopez slots into that 8th inning role, and it could go one each way. And that is kind of one of those things where if you're a Nationals fan, and if you cover this team, this is already a headache in 2025. Because you don't know where this guy will go. You don't know which direction he's going to go with his career at this point. He has proven to be a solid pitcher, but he has also proven to be someone who is wildly inconsistent, and it's a year-by-year basis. Will the Nationals get the best version of Jorge Lopez? I'd like to think that. Because from what we saw last year again, I mean, it's one of the most memorable moments from a wild baseball season, having Jorge Lopez throw his glove over the netting there, and then eventually being cut by the New York Mets just shortly after that. That's just one of those things where, is this guy a hothead? Is this guy going to be good to lead a young bullpen? Because this is a young bullpen group right now. But let's get into the 9th inning, the closer, that we all care about. For me, it's Jose Ferrer. And if you've been listening all offseason long, I've been beating this drum for a while. In my opinion, he's got the best stuff. In my opinion, I think he does have closer type of stuff. It kind of reminds me of what Sean Doolittle was. He's an unorthodox closer who, when Sean Doolittle was here, he was throwing 95-mile-per-hour fastballs, but he's making you swing and miss a lot of the time. I think Jose Ferrer is similar to that, where he's not going to be throwing 100 to 101 miles per hour and blowing you away. But his stuff is good enough, and he's got swing and miss stuff, and he puts the ball on the ground a lot for a closing pitcher. I think all those things are good for the Nationals. And I think going into this season, Ferrer is going to be your guy. He is going to be the guy that the Nationals can really just yell and just wave their flag around for, because this is going to be the guy in the bullpen in 2025. Jose Ferrer is very good. But also, you need some other stuff. Luckily, the Nationals have Zach Brixey, who I think could be something potentially. And you've also have Evan Reifert coming over from the Tampa Bay Rays. But also, let's just be blunt. They need additional help. And I think if the Nationals were to go into the season with this current construction of the bullpen, there's going to be a lot of bumpy roads. And if you think back to 2019 when Davey Martinez said, bumpy roads lead to beautiful places, also sometimes bumpy roads lead to a dead end. And I would hope to God that this bullpen, the way that it's currently constructed, does not lead to a dead end. But when you have a lot of young guys in here and some guys who are just veteran kind of float arounds and don't really have a set place in stone in the bullpen, it's a little tricky. And it's hard to convince yourself that this bullpen will be something special in the year of 2025. But it could be. It's got young youth potential. But at this point, I guess we'll have to see. But next, let's talk about the weird Nathaniel Lowe thing. Nathaniel Lowe and the Nationals are likely headed towards arbitration. We'll discuss that after this. Now we get into it with the Nationals and newly acquired first baseman Nathaniel Lowe. Nathaniel Lowe was traded from the Rangers to the Nationals to be their first baseman, hopefully over the next 2 seasons. And Nathaniel Lowe and the Nationals are already headed to arbitration today. First and foremost, I saw a lot of people arguing over this. Is this a bad look for the Nats? I'm not going to say it's an awful look, but it's certainly not a good look. Because again, the figures of this and what the Nationals filed for compared to what Nathaniel Lowe filed for is pretty, just not good. Nathaniel Lowe filed for $11.1 million, while the Nationals countered at $10.3 million. For a team that is roughly $20 to $25 million below their payroll from last season, from a team that I believe is 28th in all of MLB payrolls right now, and by far and away the biggest market as far as that bottom third teams go, this is kind of a joke. It just is. It's over $800,000. It sounds like a lot for the people who don't watch baseball all the time, but as far as these billionaires go, this is really nothing. And you are spending significantly less money than what you were just this last year. Don't get it twisted. This is penny pitching. This is not something that the Yankees would do or the Dodgers would do. You've seen it with the Houston Astros and what they're doing with Kyle Tucker. And for those who don't understand arbitration is this. 2 of the sides go to court, Nathaniel Lowe and the Nationals, and Nathaniel Lowe has to put up why he thinks that he is worth X amount of money. In this case, it's $11.1 million. And while the Nationals have to go against that case and defend why they think he is deserving of $10.3 million in this case, aka lesser money. And when there comes lesser money, obviously becomes lesser of the product. The Nationals have to argue on their own team's behalf as to why this guy does not deserve $11.1 million. And it gets a little contentious. And we have seen that over the years. Bo Bichette, a few years ago, I remember he came out and slammed the arbitration deals. And players in the past have also done this. And I will say this about the Nationals. They usually avoid these things. They usually get it done before that court hearing. And I certainly expect them to hopefully kind of get that message through Mike Rizzo or whoever it has to go through at this point. But saving $800,000 for someone that you have just traded for, that you gave up Robert Garcia for, to be your first baseman every single day moving forward, this is just not a good look. And this is certainly not the Nationals team that I grew up rooting for and grew up covering and whatever it was. This is just different, and it's not a good look. And people can go out there and fight on the learner's behalf. You go for it. That is a hill that I'm not willing to die on at this point. I was a few years ago, but I'm not there anymore. The payroll is what it is. They are cutting money still, even though the Nationals should be going forward, and they simply are not. This is a bad look for the team. It just is. Way to kind of wet blanket a trade that is a good one, by the way. This is a good trade what the Nationals did, but now you have to go to court and fight on your behalf for saving $800,000. And yes, you might be saying, well, $800,000 could get you something. I'm sure it could, but really at the end of the day, you are still saving money from what this product was just last year. And I'm not anticipating them making $20 million plus in contracts over the next month and a half. I don't think anyone's going to anticipate that at this point. But you have to go into this thinking that the Nationals are going to be just another cost-cutting season. And that is a frustrating point. And that is something that I think a lot of Nationals fans are just tired of at this point. So yes, it is a little bit of a bad look for the team. I don't think it's going to get to the point where they will get to arbitration and they will be sitting in front of a judge trying to knock down Nathaniel Lowe, because that's really just what arbitration is. And it's a bad look, in my opinion. I think it's very outdated in the game of baseball. That should just be crumbled up and thrown in the trash. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But man, oh man, just the way that times are. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.